welcome back to the What the Falk Sunderland preview show as we look ahead to the weekend game against Oxford United at the Stadium of Light. The visit of Oxford is never ever boring. We've seen Sunderland win 7-0 over Oxford once. We've marked the death of Princess Diana with a minute's silence once upon a time. But perhaps most memorably, we've once had former Oxford boss KARL Robinson ringing the police on max power after a fracas in the tunnel. So it's certainly been an intriguing one, and it's been a while since we've last faced each other. So I am delighted to welcome back one of my favourite guests from the League One days, Sai from the Fence End Pod. Sai, how are we doing? You okay?
Yeah, very well. Good to be back in the Championship with you guys.
It's like, if you'd said League One, it would have been like, it's fine to be back. But we're pleased we're out of there. How are you feeling out of the doldrums of League One?
It's good. It's been a long time. 1999, a good quarter of a century since we were last at this level. We've been really down in the doldrums of non-league as well in that time, and we are the little fish in this big pond, but we're giving it a right good go so far.
So we'll start straight from the top. Obviously, we've had Luton this week. You have had Derby at home. And you asked me beforehand, I said, who are you playing? So I've got West Brom this week, and then we're playing Derby. And I went, West Brom's tough. Hopefully you can do us a favour. I went, but I don't really rate Derby. They're probably the worst side I've seen. Lo and behold, you drew both of them 1-1. But we'll talk about yesterday's performance, Tuesday's performance first. Fellow promoted team, you finished below them because obviously you came to the playoffs. They finished in the automatics. You took the lead in the first half, but how was the performance?
Yeah, it was. The Radio Oxford commentary described it perfectly. Said it looked like a top of the League One game, rather than a Championship game. Derby do like to play it long. They're a bit of a, they're a big physical side. They're good at what they do, and it kind of doesn't really suit us. With the way we're playing at the moment, we want a bit more possession of the ball. We want to occasionally, if we haven't got possession, we'll keep our structure and play on the break. And we kind of got dragged into a bit of a battle, and it didn't really suit us. The games you mentioned the West Brom game. I felt we played better in that, although we had less of the ball, and it felt more like we were up against it. A little bit like in the Portsmouth game as well. We kind of got dragged down to having a scrap, and it doesn't really suit us. No, it's still unbeaten at home. And if you said kind of getting towards, I think November will be the next time we play at home, I think, and we're still unbeaten. I think everyone would have taken that. A lot of draws in there recently, but at the start of the season we were winning those home games. We're now drawing against the likes of West Brom and Burnley. So, all in all, pretty good.
Yeah, because looking at the league, I think I touched on it before. Like I said, you're one of the three newly promoted teams, and you're the one that, like us, came to the playoffs. Without kind of trying to sound arrogant here, which it might come across, I think because of the size Sunderland are, we probably didn't have the expectation of, they might go straight back down, like some other clubs might, which you may have had put on you. But you're comfortably the best performing team after 10 games of the season. 10 games, sorry. You're 10th as it stands. You've won 3, you've drew 5, you've lost 3. That's probably the key stat, that you've only lost 3. Why do you think it started so well? Because Derby might say it started as good, but Pompey can't say that, and they won the league.
No, Pompey had a tough start to the season, and we played. I think the 3 home games were Norwich, and on the morning of the Norwich game, I can't think of the guy's name, but their star player decided he wanted to go to Marseille and kind of refused to play, and they were a bit undone by that. Preston, I think, were on their 3rd manager of the season when we played them, and then we beat Stoke and they sacked their manager. And I think we kind of played those teams at the right time for us. They were, the start of the season helped. But equally, since then, we've played Luton, who've come down from the Premier League last season, and Burnley and West Brom, who are going to be there or thereabouts, and we've done well. I've been really impressed. Every game we play, we're getting we're thinking this is going to be tough, or this is going to be tough, and then, they're all tough matches. But I've been really impressed with the way we've set up. But certainly at the start of the season, before we had a few injuries, 8 or 9 of the players that were starting in the Championship were players that were finishing the season last year in League One. It's not like we've brought a lot of players in, but we're sticking with a core, or we had up until the injuries hit, started with a core of players from last year. So it felt, rather than a revolution, it was an evolution of the squad, and we've added a bit of flair, but equally we've got players that understand each other's games, and it worked well so far.
Looking at it wasn't that long ago that we came up, although it does feel like a while ago. It was this time 2 years ago, I think. And I remember once we got that first win, which came in our second game against Bristol City, we got drawn home against Coventry, who I think were around the playoffs the season before at the time. So we thought, oh, hang on a minute, we can kind of compete at this level. As it was, lo and behold, we went and got in the playoffs and expectations raised. But I remember that first season feeling like a total free hit. Like, I was enjoying going to the games. We played good football. Even when Alex Neil decided to go to Stoke, I don't know how that's going for him. I'm assuming quite well. I don't know. And Mowbray came in. That worked out well. And we had this young, vibrant squad playing football we enjoyed. And it was just a really nice season that even when it got to the end of the year and we didn't win the playoffs, you kind of went, oh, that was great. But I remember this part of the season, it was like, hang on, we can hack it here. We can do it. And you come off the crest of a wave of a Wembley win, something that Oxford are doing as well. How's the fan base at the moment? Because I remember I was being particularly happy and also like no expectations. Does yours feel like in a similar way at the moment because of the start you've had?
Yeah, we've sold out every home game so far this season. You know, the expectation, I think, at the start of the season was, if we can avoid relegation, we'll have had a great season. And the fact that it's started better than that, you know, while we were 10th at the moment, it's tight. You know, I think we're only 4 points off of a playoff place and 4 points off a relegation spot. It's not really spread out yet, but no, the fans have really been behind Dez. He's the manager is a former youth team player who kind of got into coaching very early, didn't have a professional career to speak of. Like I say, he was an academy player. I don't think he ever played in the first team. And he was a coaching from a very young age. He's had a bit of a journey around the world. He's been to New Zealand and Australia, and more recently India, as part of the City group. And he's been mentioned. It's one of those things. Whenever he changed jobs, the local paper always covered, oh, Dez Buckingham's now gone to here and there. And everyone was a bit, everyone's kept an eye on his career, because it just felt like at some point he's going to come back. And sure enough, he did. It didn't start brilliantly. Under Liam Manning last season, we were doing really well at the start of the season. Dez came in, it struggled a little bit, but ultimately got us through the playoffs. And he's sort of some of the stuff that's happened around for, those we've lost George Baldock recently, who was a player with us, a young lad, a fan, took his own life. And there's the emotional intelligence of Dez has really shone through. He's a really good coach, but he's also a really good human being. And I think that's endeared him to the fans. The way we play, we can see how we want to play. There's an identity, and we've stuck with it. Now we're now at that stage of the season where I think expectations are a little bit higher, and we're starting to get critical of players. It's like, hang on, 6 months ago we'd have taken top half of the Championship. Now we're getting a little bit, well, we want a bit more. We're now picking holes in performance, which is understandable. You want to be as good as you can possibly be, but no, the expectation now has risen. But equally, the fans can see how we want to play. So there's a real patience with the team. There's not the shouts of, get it forward, lump it, come on, we've got an identity. He's sticking to it, and the fans are really enjoying it.
I wanted to chat about Dez Buckingham, who sounds like, I don't know, he sounds like something out of like an American sitcom or something like that, like the stereotypical British guy that just appears and marries Sylvia or something like that. But you touched on before about I didn't actually know about the situations you described before, apart from obviously George Baldock. But I did notice, and I don't know how many people are aware of it, there's a company called Boys Get Sad, which is kind of raising the awareness of men's mental health and obviously encouraging people when they see the hoodie to speak and so on and so forth. I think some people know that if you don't, obviously very good company and doing a good job. And I've seen that he wore that a few weeks ago. Was that in was that in response to obviously the sad passing of the young fan that
it was, I think it was, it was the sort of game after he'd taken his own life. He was a lad I kind of recognise. I didn't know him, but he was a face you sort of think, I recognise him. He was part of the sort of the ultras, the lads with the flags and stuff from a few years back. So he was well known and well loved. Des, spoke very eloquently about that and sort of suicide as well. The Will Volks has come in. He's spoken about it as well. He lost both his grandfathers to suicide. Joey Beecham, our greatest ever player, took his own life as well. And it Des has been sort of very key in raising that the sort of the profile of that and getting people to talk and whatever. And it's he just seems to do the right thing, not for this because it's the sort of thing you need to do as a manager and be seen to be doing. I think he's doing it because it's the right thing to do, and he's very much kind of got that, like I say, that emotional intelligence to do that, it comes from the heart. He's very, very well loved.
It's interesting because I had a lot of questions here wrote down about his tactics and what kind of football you're going to play and stuff like that. But you've taken another trajectory, which I'm pleased you have. I think we get bogged down a little bit sometimes, don't we, in like tactics and who plays what and what to do, and that's really important. Don't get me wrong, but I said years and years and years ago, I can't remember which manager we were looking for, but I said what we need is a manager that just gets the place. And what do you mean? And I said, well, in my lifetime, I've had Peter Reid gets the place. Sam Allardyce, character, got the place. Like Gustavo Poyet, all right, he didn't have a great end, but he got us to Wembley. He got the place. And there's loads of managers, Roy Keane being a prime example of understanding the place, setting the standards. And they're all different personalities and different characters. But underneath, there were characters that understood the football club and respected it for what it was. I imagine that's gone incredibly far in terms of, look, that promotion probably helped. Don't get me wrong, and winning games does help. But how much has it helped having that on top, that you've got a bloke who's from your area, he's from Oxford, and he seems to have an understanding of the fan base, even in the most challenging of circumstances, which we've just discussed.
Yeah, I think it does help. Like you mentioned, managers there that get the place. And I know, KARL Robinson wasn't everyone's cup of tea, and I know there's that
he was funny. Look, he was very funny.
Yeah.
I'm going to call the police.
Equally, I think he came at it from he was too emotional at times, and sometimes it was like, oh God, what's he saying now? But I think he also got what it meant to be a fan. Since him, we've had Liam Manning, who very sadly has gone through an awful time at the moment, and again that puts football into perspective. But he came across as not really, it was sort of facts and figures and data, and you want a manager to understand all that and work on a plan and all of that. It's modern football now, but equally you want a manager that, like you say, gets it, understands what it means to the fans, understands what it means to be an Oxford fan. And there's that talk of identities of clubs, but I think as fans we kind of, while we might not be immersed in every other club, you kind of know what they're about. There's a history in certain clubs and the way they play and the type of players they might want, and the local area and all of that sort of stuff. And I think Dez has certainly reflects that, and the club are doing all the right things around that. We're, like I say, we're the smallest club in the division by some way, but we're doing things the right way on the pitch. We've got that big club mentality where it needs to be done right, but equally we've not lost sight of the fact that most fans, if they don't know each other's names, they'll know most of us by sight. There's a small club, there's a family club sort of feel to it, but equally we're doing the stuff that needs to be done properly. We're doing that properly.
You said about being the smallest club. I mean, there is Middlesbrough, but here we are. Second and third, I've got a few questions about Dez Buckingham. The first one is he all right? Yeah, go home, didn't he, on Tuesday because he wasn't very well?
Yeah, I was listening. I went to the game, didn't notice anything because he was on the touchline a lot, and he's not hugely demonstrative anyway. He's not a manager that, if he stood there quietly, you think, well, that's odd. He was there on the touchline, but apparently during the second half, he was getting a bit, feeling dizzy and feeling not right. So the club doctors, I think, more or less on full time said, right, somebody take him home. I guess if he's got some kind of bug, you don't want him around the dressing room anyway. According to local press this morning, he was going to be taking training. Whether they'll be in today, after tomorrow, I'm not sure. But he's fine. There was no sort of long-term worry. But yeah, it was a bit of a strange one that he did sort of unwell on the touchline, but saw it through to the final whistle.
I think he's making it up. I reckon he's got the shits and he's just trying to save face. But
yeah.
His story is interesting. Look, there'll be people who want me to talk more about the team, but I looked at you touched on it before, like how unusual his role's been. Like, didn't play at all. Youth team player that I've never heard of. Appointed November 2023. Started as an 18-year-old as a coach. Had time under Chris Wilder when he was at Oxford.
Yeah.
But then he left and he managed Wellington Phoenix, New Zealand under-20s, New Zealand under-23s, caretaker manager at New Zealand. Then he goes to Mumbai City. Like, it's not the direct route back to Oxford. You've touched on it a little bit, but can you give us a little bit of a lowdown on, who he actually is and why he took a route that's not well trodden, really?
I think he's, he's, like I say, clearly, an intelligent guy and well thought of in the City Group. Some of those roles were within the City Group, and I think it was quite a big sort of transfer fee, for want of a better word, that we had to pay to get him out. One or two other, I think, sort of League One clubs last season had looked at him at certain points, and it hadn't worked for whatever reason. And I think he's one of those sort of younger coaches that kind of don't necessarily need to have that. Well, he's got to have played, and he's, you go from playing into management just as one of those things that ex-players do. He's I say one of the things he's talked a lot about is his time in New Zealand with the New Zealand squad, and how, with a different sport, rugby, the All Blacks, the mentality of how things are done with the All Blacks rugby team, and buying into that culture, of the Maori culture and the sort of the no dickheads rule that they had, that he's employed very much. Apparently, within the squad, it's very much, they take care of each other, they look out for each other, and if anyone steps out of line, that's quickly sorted out. So there's a good culture within the team as well. And I think, he was very well thought of in Mumbai, not necessarily somewhere you would think of as a big football culture, but historically, but I think there's a real love of the game out there, and he's gone there and they adored him over there. He really bought into what it meant to be part of the city and that country, and he's, I guess, football's changed a little bit now. You look at the managers at national level, and the Spain manager had kind of come through B teams and under 21 teams and all of that sort of stuff. I think there's a different culture potentially in coaching now. I guess with your manager, it's a similar sort of thing. He's not a big name, but he's got that. If he's got the right attitude and the right credentials, I don't think managers nowadays have to be former players, because the game has changed so much since players, those, if they're in their 40s or 50s or whatever, the game's changed a hell of a lot since then. And I think those younger, sort of more tactical managers, lots of data involved, but equally the emotional sort of side of it as well, they can get. It's so far, it's really working.
I love how it worked for Spain. They won the Euros, and all these other European teams are doing it at national level. In England, we got Lee Carsley. Here we are. Oh well. But one thing, I was at Oxford in the summer, and I was looking to who brought who in, the ins and outs, as you do when you're waiting for the season to start. And I watched the final, funny enough, in a pub just up the road. And I thought, I kind of fancied Bolton at the time, but I kind of hoped it was going to be Oxford, because Oxford, historically, probably the smaller team. I hope you don't mind me saying. And that day, Jacob Murphy, who has a horrendous, horrible brother, ended up being your star player on that day, scored twice. And then I seen you went to Portsmouth, which I've got to be honest, felt like a bit of a sideways move. I looked at how he's getting on. They're bottom of the league and he hasn't scored in 7. It
Mhm.
felt like an odd move at the time for me. He kind of coming off the cusp of like being idolised, really, because you scored, the goals. I've got a team to the second tier. He scored at Wembley. Then you've got a Pompey who's all right, finished above in the league, but narrowly. Um, what was that all about? It just doesn't seem right.
I think from what you kind of hear, it was a bit of a financial move. I think as well. His girlfriend's family are from that area, so there was potentially a bit of a family draw for it as well. And he was back in like last summer, just over 12 months ago, was told by Liam Manning, if you can find another club, you're free to go, sort of thing, because he'd had a lot of injuries, he wasn't getting in the side, and didn't really play under Liam Manning much at all. When Dez came in, he really got the best out of him. It showed why, why he'd been brought in the first place. Under KARL Robinson, funny enough, it was when he said, "Oh, he'll be the best player in League One," and he might have been vindicated in the end, because he certainly in that last few months of the season was pretty much unplayable at times. And yeah, got the 2 goals at Wembley, and it felt like he was going to stay. I think we made him a very, very good offer, and Portsmouth sort of made him a better offer. And I guess if you'd have asked fans 6 months ago, 8 months ago, do you want to keep him and do we want to make him our highest paid player, I think everyone would have gone, no, not really, because he's hardly played and he's been injured, and it's not really worked for him at Portsmouth. I wish him luck. Obviously, he did what he did at Wembley, and rightly got the plaudits for it. But I think we've brought in 1 or 2 since then in the summer, and you kind of think, yeah, we're now in a position where we're getting players equally as good, hopefully better, and onwards and upwards, and good luck to him, sort of thing.
You mentioned about the players that came in there. One that's caught my eye. We were like really tentatively linked with him last year before he went to Ipswich, and I don't think he did much for Ipswich, but difficult team to get in. Dane Scarlett.
Mm.
Didn't have a blistering start, but he scored 2 in the last 2. I think some people would have seen his goal against West Brom at weekend, because obviously that was important for our league position, and it was quite a nice goal for him to score for us, particularly. But he looks like he's starting to find his feet. Has he been the most impressive of the ones you brought in, or has it been even better?
Well, of the ones that come in, Sariki Dembele has been the standout, but certainly Dane Scarlett. I think you often find with young players coming from Premier League teams where they've been mollycoddled's not fair, because they work damn hard, but there's a level of taking care of players at Premier League academies and stuff like that, where sometimes it takes a while for them. They need to have 1 or 2 loan moves before they really kind of settle into new environments. It is hard. It's easy to forget they're 18, 19, 20 when they go on these first loans, and they're still kids, and to try and force your way into a team that you're not familiar with and whatever. But he's stuck at it. He's worked hard when he has come on. He's every game he plays now, he looks better and better. And you're right. He came on against West Brom, got the header right at the end, and he started his first game last night in the game against Derby and scored again. And he's starting to look like the player that he's supposed to be. He's a different player to Mark Harris, who's usually the centre forward starts every week, and certainly last season we were lucky that he didn't get injured, because we didn't have a lot up front, and I think we've now got somebody in Dane Scarlett that can take the load off Mark Harris a little bit, and we're not flogging him to death. He's not having to do 90 minutes every single week. We can rest him and put somebody in like Scarlett, who's started to find his feet and score goals, and I think could well be a bit of a star this season if he continues to improve the way he has.
It feels that there's not many negatives to your season because of probably the expectation and the fact that you're 10th in X, Y, and Z. But if I was to pick one that was going to benefit me and make me feel a bit more confident, you haven't won away from home yet. 5 games. You lost the first three, but you have managed to draw the last two. How are you likely to set up against Sunderland? Are you likely to come and sit in a little bit, maybe hit us on the break, or is it likely that you'll come at us and just, what will be will be?
It's an interesting one because we've got. I mentioned Siriki Dembele. He's a sort of a wide man who likes to cut in, but he got a bit of a knock on his ankle yesterday. Came off at half time. Kyle Edwards, another Ipswich player that's come to us and looked really good, injured. Matt Phillips, former West Brom player, injured, and Shemi Plaqueta, who'd been at Norwich, injured. There's four wingers who would provide the pace and the width and the attacking flair, who might not, well, three certainly not, and probably Dembele maybe not. So I think there's a bit of a sort of formation conundrum for Dez, because it's like, do we do something different anyway, because it's going to be a tough game and we perhaps are going to not have a lot of the ball. So do we want more ball winners in the midfield? I don't know. Normally we're the back four looks fairly solid at the moment. And then we play with either one or two deep lying midfielders, a couple of wingers, a number 10 and a single forward. And it's whether or not we've got any fit wingers to see how we line up. I think it might be a little bit more of a compact midfield with less width, and we sit in and maybe hope we catch you on the break, because I think we're not going to have a great deal of the ball, and we will need to be solid. And it might rely on the odd break, but yeah, normally we'd line up with two wingers if they're fit. He's been, he loves width, and you often look at the sort of formation, and both wingers are right out on the touchline. They are proper out and out quick wingers. But like I say, with the injuries, that could well change.
And that Sunderland, and my voice broke there. It's quite funny. We're top of the league as it stands. We're speaking just before the Luton game for people wondering. Either way, we're going to be up or around there by the time you visit on Saturday. It wasn't that long ago we were League One promotion rivals. That's why we speak. That's why I knew who to contact, X, Y, and Z. This is our third season in the Championship. I'm sure you've seen one or two games from afar. You might have watched a little bit more this season. What have you made of Sunderland's progression in the Championship, and in particular how we've done the first sort of 11 games this season? Yeah,
like you say, you're the history of the club, the size of the club, the stadium, the fans, all of that. You're one of those clubs that really should be in the Premier League. You look at it's always a tricky one, because I got into a little. I shouldn't have done, but it's sort of an online spat with a Bristol City fan saying, "Well, we're bigger than you. We got a bigger stadium." It's like, yeah, but you've never won anything. It's like you can have a big stadium, but you need to be doing stuff and winning stuff and all of that. But equally, yeah, Sunderland. You look at Sunderland and Leeds and Burnley more recently. Big old traditional clubs that have spent most of their lives in the top tier, and we're a side that I guess most of our time has been around sort of second or third tier. We're probably around about where we historically have been. We've had got a lot of championship seasons, 3 in the top division, a League Cup win, and it will be going into this kind of. Obviously, the players won't be looking at this, but I think the fans will be going, if we get anything out of this, great. But we're not expecting to get a lot. And the away form has been a bit patchy. We've kind of stopped the defeats, but those defeats have only been by 1 goal. So we're not getting beat out of sight yet. That could well come on Saturday. Who knows? But it does feel like we're setting up to be solid. Hard to break down. But equally, when we get the ball, we do try and play a bit.
This is a question I've changed, so I might catch you unawares here, but probably not. So for years, everyone, when I say, who's the player you're most worried about, they say Jack Clark, and it got really boring. If you could take one player from Sunderland's team to fit into Oxford's team, I'm not necessarily saying our best player or who you think was our best player, just a player that you think would fit into your team or you would like to have, who would it be and why?
The way he started at Bellingham seems to be, a hell of a player, and that sort of physical, big box-to-box midfielder, quick. We've got some really good ball players in midfield. We've got players with a bit of physicality, but we haven't got the complete package. We've got some I think everyone in our team is really comfortable on the ball. Somebody like Josh McEachran, great, but he's not going to be going box to box, for 90 minutes. And I think somebody like that spine of the team, is always good. I'm not saying he'd get in the side anymore, but Luke O'Nien is somebody I've always liked. I think he was at Wickham years ago, and he was one of those players you look at and you think, I'd love him at our place because he's 100% every game, not necessarily the most, technically gifted player, but he can play a bit. But you just know he's one of those players. He's been with you for years now, and I think he'll probably, he is one of those players that you feel he's not going to flit around and just go off for a new contract. He likes it where he is, and he does a job. And he's a player I've always admired.
I was one of those people that was there when we beat you 7-0. I was a little bit younger, fatter though, weirdly enough. I fancy us to win on Saturday. I think it would be, no offense, silly of me not to. We haven't won away from home.
Yeah.
We're up and around the top of the league. So I'm going to take us to... You've lost every game by 1 goal if you have lost. So I'll take us to win 2-1. I think it'll be tougher than we think, but I think we've got enough to get beyond you. But are you agreeing with me, or are you going to go a little bit more positive?
Yeah, no, I am. But every time we come up against a side that we think we're going to get absolutely tonked here, we don't. And that's another, going back to Dez, he's impressing us every sort of step of the way. He's made the step up very quickly. The players have as well. At some point, we are going to get tonked. It's just one of those things. Whether this, so I've talked about injuries, it's not just wide players. Cameron Brannigan, who's been the heartbeat of the team for a while, is out injured as well. And McEachran's only just come back from injury. And it just feels like we're a little bit sort of threadbare. And it might be that this, not where we get found out, because I think if we had a fit squad, I'd be a bit more positive about things. I'm not expecting to get anything out of the game. Anything we do get will be a bonus, but it might well be that Saturday is the time where we lose by more than 1 goal. So if we can leave, I'd probably take a 1 goal defeat now and sort of go, okay, yeah, nobody's expecting more than that.
Absolutely reminds me of that first season in the Championship where I kept going, just as long as we have a goal, Sheffield United, you never know. And then all of a sudden, like, you got to like March and you're like, why we're not beating Sheffield United? The expectations change so fast, but I'm pleased your expectations align with mine at the minute. Si, always got to catch up, mate. I wish you luck for the rest of the season, but an awful Saturday, standard. And of course, the return fixture as well. But thanks for coming on, mate. Appreciate it.
Thank you.